come together this afternoon to celebrate the life of Wendy Taylor, to comfort each other and this family in our loss, and to honor God, who is the giver of life, both temporal and eternal. On behalf of Wendy's family, I welcome all of you who've come here together at this time. I know we have a lot to celebrate as we remember Wendy and all that she is and was for us and to us and with us. Thank you for being here. As we spend these next few minutes together just thinking about Wendy and thinking about our lives together with her, I know it's a blessing to the family that you've chosen to be here with us today. I'm going to read some passages from the Christian Scriptures as we begin. One specific one that Wendy had asked for, and then a few others. I thought it appropriate to read several of those passages that have to do with rivers, because it's all throughout the Bible about rivers. But let me begin with that most famous of comforting words. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He makes me lie down in green pastures. He leads me beside still waters. He restores my soul. He guides me in paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Indeed, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I fear no evil, for you are with me. Your rod and your staff, they comfort me. You prepare a table before me in the presence of my enemies. You anoint my head with oil. My cup overflows. Surely, goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. Who shall separate us from the love of Christ? Shall tribulation or distress, or persecution, or famine, or nakedness, or peril, or sword? No, I am convinced that neither death, nor life, nor angels, nor principalities, nor things present, nor things to come, not powers, nor height, nor depth, nor any other created thing shall be able to separate us from the love of God, which is in Christ Jesus our Lord. God is our refuge and strength, a very present help in trouble. Therefore we will not fear, though the earth should change, and though the mountains slip into the heart of the sea, though its waters roar and foam, though the mountains quake at its swelling pride, there is a river whose streams make glad the city of God, the holy dwelling places of the Most High. God is in the midst of her, and she will not be moved. God showed me a river of the water of life, clear as crystal, coming down from the throne of God and of the Lamb in the middle of its street. And on either side of the river was the tree of life, bearing 12 kinds of fruit, yielding fruit every month. And the leaves of the tree were for the healing of the nations. And there shall no longer be any curse. And the throne of God and of the Lamb shall be in it. And his servants shall serve him, and they shall see God's face, and God's name shall be on their foreheads. And there shall no longer be any night. And they shall not have need of the light of a lamp for the light of the sun, because the Lord God shall illumine them, and they shall reign forever and ever. For this reason, the saints are before the throne of God and serve him day and night in God's temple. And God who sits on the throne shall spread the tabernacle over them. They shall hunger no more, neither thirst. Neither shall the sun beat down on them, nor any heat. For the Lamb in the center of the throne shall be their shepherd, and shall guide them to springs of the water of life. And God will wipe away every tear from their eyes. Let us pray. Gracious God, in this moment, we pause to say thank you. Thank you for Wendy Taylor. She was light and love and joy and blessing everywhere she went. And we are so grateful that we are able to be a part of that life for this short time. We thank you for the hope that we have of sufferings ending, of life eternal, of forever love for Wendy, and the promise and hope that we might have these things too. We thank you also that because of Wendy's life and encouragement, our lives are better, and we can be more loving, life-giving people because we knew her. In the name of Christ we pray. Amen. This time we're going to have some reflections and sharing from some of Wendy's friends and co-workers. This time we'll ask you to take John.
For those of you who don't know me, I had the fortunate experience of teaching Wendy Taekwondo karate. And just hearing Mr. Gregg's words, those are the words that are repeated by so many people over the last couple of weeks. We're all here today to honor Wendy and show her family and friends how much we care for her and our loss with our presence and condolences. And I use the word care because Wendy was the most caring person I have ever met. Wendy joined our karate family a couple of years after I started the school 36 years ago. She was a dedicated and hardworking student. She easily earned her black belt, even though she may have disagreed with the easy part. I have to share one of the proudest moments of Wendy and her sister also. They started training and got their black belts, and they entered their first karate tournament in Greensboro at our main school at one of the colleges up there too. And our Korean teacher came down and he told all the students that were entering, if you're going to win, stay at home. And you could just see the faces of the students just drop. But what he was trying to tell them in his Korean way was they needed to get experience in competition before they were going to be good at it. But they were discouraged, and all I could tell them was take pride in what they're doing, do the best they can. And I can tell you with pride, these two women kicked butt in their competition. They won and beat the men in their competition. And I had other competitors come up to me and ask, where did those girls come from? Because there were very few women back then in North Carolina in competition. And they also kept saying they were great. They were great. Their hard work and dedication to their training paid off. It was second to none. They worked harder than anybody in class. And people will say, oh, you're a good teacher, you're a good teacher. And I always reiterate, the teacher only gives you the instruction. You make yourself do it. And that was true for Wendy. She trained, studied, practiced, did not waste a minute, and Jim probably can tell us. He would probably want her in the house half the time when she was outside kicking trees, right? She would relate some of the stories of kicking around the house in the yard. But her win is only because of her work and dedication to her art. We only gave her the instruction. She became a source of encouragement for all other women that signed up for the karate. I'll share another memory with you. We had a student, Jim McMillan, who some of you may have heard of. He was a pro basketball player, around 6'5", 240, 250 pounds probably. He was a partner with Wendy one night in one of our classes. And we just had that night, we were going to do hands-on on takedowns and overhead throws. He was with his partner. And he looked down at Wendy, and you could tell on his face, I don't want to be her partner. And so I told him Wendy could take care of herself, not to worry about her, and he was still hesitant. He said, if I fall on her, she's going to be hurt and flattened. And Wendy said, I'll be all right. Well, we finally got him to do what he was supposed to do. And after she threw him over her head and he laid on his back, he kept laying there going, she really did. He didn't make a move to get up. He just kept saying, she really did. And from then on, every time I talked to Jim or some of the other bigger, taller guys in there, they'd say, how's my girl? I knew they were talking about Wendy. And sad to say, Jim passed away in 2016 also. So Wendy, if you're listening, have fun throwing Jim around. One thing, Wendy always treated her family and friends with respect, encouragement, and loyalty. She took pride in their accomplishments. She got as much joy out of your accomplishments as she did her own. And that's a rare trait these days, is that my society. She's a rare woman who I am glad I could call a friend. Not a student anymore, even though she was. She became a great friend. Wendy would have to step back from karate a few times over the 36 years she trained. Her love and dedication to her family and job came first, but she always returned. Karate was something she gave herself. She said karate relieved her stress and got rid of frustrations. As we all know, she stayed busy most hours of the day and the night. She trained almost up until the last days when most would have quit. And the last time that I texted her, she said she was doing her forms in her mind, even though she couldn't physically do them. The strength this woman had and demonstrated should be a legacy to us all. She left us with that legacy. In closing this eulogy, I want to tell Wendy, have fun kayaking with Mary Grace, karate with her karate family, hiking with her sister Lori. We will all try to deal with the void left in our life with the strength that she set as an example. We will miss her.
Good afternoon. It is a great honor for me to be asked to say a few words about my colleague and my dear friend Wendy. For those who don't know me, my name is Jack, and I was Wendy's boss at Chatham Hospital for about 10 years. She used to call me the boss man. I quickly found out within weeks of working with Wendy that Wendy was compassionate. She was kind, she was caring, she was always there for her patients and her colleagues in the cardiopulmonary department, her colleagues in nursing, and was always there for the doctors whenever they needed information. When Wendy was scheduled to work, we could never find her. She would come in and disappear. Hours later, we would all try to call her and ask her if she had breakfast, she had lunch. This is because she always was with her patients. Helping them whatever they needed to do. Not only did she just deliver medication for the respiratory department, but she also would feed them. She would give them bedpans if the nurses were busy. She would listen to them. definition of compassion means a concern for suffering and misfortune. That was Wendy Taylor, all the way. She was always so concerned for everyone that needed her, whether it be her patients, her family, friends, and her colleagues. Wendy took it upon herself to make sure Darlene's garden was always cared for. Darlene was a therapist that passed away about 5 years ago from cancer. There was a little, in the courtyard in the hospital, a little remembrance of flowers. Wendy would come on her day off with her gloves and her shovels, redoing the flowers, because that's what Wendy did. She always wanted to make sure everyone was taken care of, including Darlene. As you know, Wendy loved the outdoors, her kayaking, camping stories, and she would tell me of places where I never even knew existed. She was always proud of her kayaking and trips, and she would share her pictures with me. Those pictures always showed a great smile. Wendy's smile was infectious, and when we would all see it, and all of you in this room can certainly relate to what I'm about to describe, the smile would send us a message that was loud and clear. Everything's fine. We're okay. Love is all we need. Wendy loved us all that are here today, and those who could not make it. She loved her husband, her daughter, her son, and most of all, she could not stop talking about them. Wendy Taylor loved her friends, her colleagues, and of course me. And I loved her back. Wendy was very dear to me and all of us that are touched. She was, and still is, a superhuman being. And I, for one, will never forget her. She meant so much to me and everyone else in this room. Rest in peace, Wendy. We know you're in good hands.
I've struggled for 2 weeks trying to figure out what I was going to say today. I could stand up here and tell you all day long how much I love Wendy and how much Kim did and how much she meant to us. But if I do, I'm just going to sit here and give asking full of tears. I hope you got this. I didn't know what to say, and I'm usually never a lost word. I mean, everybody on the Hope Floats team will tell you I could get up here and talk for hours. They have to drag me away. And if we start talking about Wendy and I start telling you how much I loved her and what she did for me, we'll be here all night. 5 o'clock is not going to be enough. But I couldn't get the words on paper. Every time I would try, I just couldn't get it on paper. Yesterday at this time, I still had no clue what I was going to say today. But then something happened. Somebody gave me the words. And he gave me the words. They were always there. And what she told me was not to tell everybody how much we loved her, but how much she loved me. And it's in her own words. It's in her own writing. And I'm going to share it with you. But to share it with you, we got to go through a story about how she came to us and how we met. So Wendy came into mine and Kim's life about 10 years ago. And it was through a simple 5x7 card. When we were trying to put together Hope Floats and get it off the ground, we weren't real sure how we were going to do that. How we were going to pull together a group of people that were passionate enough or crazy enough to join us on the arduous journey that we had planned. It was arduous. So one of the things we did is we had these little 5x7 cards printed up, and it had all the information about what we were going to do, and our contact information in there. And we had thousands of them, and we went everywhere passing these cards out. I mean, everybody we saw with a kayak, there was a car. We rode through parking lots. We rode through everywhere. If we saw a kayak or a rack on the car, or even a decal that looked like it was kayaking, we said one of them. I mean, it looked like Walmart with flyers all over out in the parking lot. So we finally started going to meetup groups and paddling, and we would give out cards there. And it was on one of these meetup groups that we were paddling with that we ran across Kathy and Mary Grace. And we paddled for the day with them, and when it was over with, I went and loaded the car, and Jim walked up, and she handed one off in the car and walked away. And we left that day not knowing that anyone would take up our challenge. But it wasn't too long after that I got a phone call from Wendy. She was not there the day that we paddled. And she had gone back. Wendy and Mary Grace and Kathy had talked to Wendy and told her all about us and what we were planning on doing, and they were trying to convince her to go. But Wendy was the practical one in that group. Mary Grace was the adventurous. Kathy is the free-spirited one, but Wendy was the grounded person, and she wanted to know all the details about everything that we were trying to do. She was not going to let them drag her into something until she knew everything about it. So during that first conversation that I had with her, it was filled with questions. She wanted to know about me. She wanted to know about Kim. She wanted to know why we were starting this. She wanted to know, it was the first time she told me about losing her mother and her sister to cancer. She shared that with me in our first conversation. Then she wanted to know how hard it was going to be, what we expected. Had we done this before? Have we done anything like this before? You know, were we going to be dragging boats through the mud? Were we going to, what was going to happen? She wanted to know all this. And when she got through asking all the questions that she had asked, she told me, she said, I'll get together with the girls and we'll let you know. Well, it's pretty obvious what happened and what decision they decided to make. Now, I can't remember the first time I ever paddled with Wendy. I've gone back through all my emails, pictures, everything I've got trying to figure out that first time I was on the water with her. And it really bothers me because I remember the day I paddled with every person in my group and exactly what happened in those days. But I cannot remember the day with Wendy. And it really, really bothered me over the last few weeks. And so I went through all the pictures, all the videos, all the everything the past 10 years trying to figure that out. Sometimes I'd see her in a picture. Sometimes I wouldn't. Times that I didn't see her, sometimes I knew she was there because a camera gives you a certain signature, and you know whose camera it was that took the picture, and I knew it was Wendy that was there, and she took those pictures. And so even though the photographer's not in the picture, they're there with me. So then, as I went through, and I kept looking at this stuff, looking at all these pictures that brought back all these memories that I had of her, and I came to an epiphany. And it was that Wendy was always there. Even when she wasn't physically there with us, she was there with us. And I know that sounds strange that someone can be there and not be there, but you got to understand how things work with Wendy. If we were planning a trip, I sent out an invitation to all the team a few weeks in advance. I usually get emails back from them that says, yep, going, no, I'm not going. With Wendy, it didn't work that way. You got one of two things. If Wendy was going to go, she would send me a long email, never short. Y'all think my emails long? Wendy had a very long email. And she wanted to know everything. She wanted to know how we were doing, how Kim's scans had gone, how her blood work was doing, how my family was doing, how the kids were doing, what we'd been up to. She wanted to know all these things. She would say, I sure do miss you guys, and I can't wait to get caught up with you when we go on this path. Now, if she couldn't go, I got a card in the mail. Wendy loved to sing cards. And it was never just a card, it was always filled. It was not some generic thing that was inside the card, it was Wendy's writing. both sides inside and
Yep.
sometimes the back of the card. She used every blank space on that card and put something on there. And on it would always say like this, "Hey, I can't come with you. I really will miss it." She hopes we have a great time. She wants to hear all about it when we get back. In addition, she'd ask the same questions she did in all those long meetings. "How are you doing? How's your family doing? How's all this going? We need to catch up real soon." I hated it when we couldn't go with us, but I loved getting the cards. They were filled with the most thoughtful words about how she felt about us and everybody around her. On a lot of those trips when she couldn't come, she sent care packages with us. Sometimes it was food, other times it was wine. Kathy's the only person I know, and through this story, that she made margaritas in a boat one year.
Yeah.
But a lot of times, what she was seeing was wood. See, Wendy loved the fire. She didn't think any camping was complete without a fire. If it was 100 degrees outside, we had fire. On our very first year that we paddled together, when we got to Goldsboro, and Goldsboro's the third day, and we paddled like 95 miles when we get to Goldsboro, something like that. We would give out. It was cold. It was raining. We ate dinner, and everybody kind of went off their tents to go to bed. Not Wendy. She started dragging her. And it wasn't long before she had a little fire. Well, all that work she did to build that, everybody else came back out. And we sat in the rain around that fire. Wendy knew that if she didn't start a fire, no one else would. If Wendy was going on an overnight trip with us, she'd usually call me a few days before the trip and said, "I need to bring wood." She wanted to make sure that we had a fire. When she couldn't go with us, she always sent things. Sometimes it was wood. Because she didn't want us to get there and not be able to have a fire. Because she wanted us to remember, not to forget, that she was with us, that she was thinking about us. And even when we went to some of these trips, and I know some of you have seen pictures, where you have to pack everything into the boat and paddle to where you were going to camp at, and you had just enough room to squeeze into the boat. She said the next best thing, Duraflame locks.
Yeah.
She'd wrap them up in plastic and tape real tight so that they couldn't get wet, and she'd tell us to take them with us. And we couldn't bear to leave them in the car. We would throw out good stuff to take back. And she went through all that work to get it to us. I learned over the years that for Wendy, it wasn't just about having fire or camping. The fire had a real purpose in it, that it brought people together where we could enjoy each other's company and share stories and thoughts and ideas. It drew us closer together. And sending the things she did, she knew we would remember not to forget about her and that she was thinking about us. 10 years at the best of times was filled with some of the worst of times. This was group therapy for us, by the way. Wendy called it liquid therapy. And we can't explain to you what it's like to go on a trip with us. None of us will ever be able to explain it. It is a very magical and mysterious thing. You've got to go to understand what it's like. So that's why I don't tell a lot of stories about it. So it's hard for me to understand, unless you've actually been there. But it brought us closer together. Kathy said when I first came here today, she said a lot of your family, she likes your what you was. I said, no, we all have. We all have a connection. We all have family because you know, I don't know you standing here listening, but I've heard you talk about you. You tell every person in this room. But Wendy always, if you told her good news, she would rejoice with you. When it wasn't great news, she shared in the pain and the grief. It wasn't just the usual, I'm sorry to hear that. For most people who don't quite know what to say, she really felt the worry, the grief, and the pain you were going through, just as if she was going through it herself. She really cared about everyone around her. When Wendy was going through her battle with cancer, she wanted everyone to know how much she appreciated the thoughts, the prayers, the positive energy that was being sent her way. It just wasn't enough for her to acknowledge her appreciation. She also wanted us to know how much she was thinking about us and how much she hoped we were doing well. Wendy was the only person that I know of that sent a whole town a letter to let them know how much they meant to her. It also was when I figured out what her favorite day was on the trip. So this past April, Wendy couldn't go. She was going through chemo treatments. And she had what we thought was going to be her last treatment schedule the week that we were to go on the trip. And she couldn't make it. But she came to the launch. And as I was getting ready to get in the boat, she pulled me over to the side and she gave me a letter. And she said, "Don't open it until you get to Seven Springs." She said, "And once you get there," she said, "I want you to open it." She said, "And if you've read it and you think you can do it," she said, "I want you to read it to everyone around the campfire." So for those of you who may not know the significance of what this is, let me put it into a little perspective. Seven Springs is a small town with a population of less than 50, where we stop halfway through our 208-mile journey each year. This little town is probably the most hospitable town you will ever go to. Towns welcomed us in with open arms every year since we began. One of the local churches comes out and feeds us a huge meal while we're staying there, and after dinner, a large group of people from the town and the church come out and sit with us around the campfire fellowship. We share stories together. It's one of the most moving experiences on the trip. So that evening, when we were all together, I opened Wendy's letter and began to read it. She apologized to everybody that she couldn't be there. And she wasn't able to make it on the trip, and she told them how much she missed seeing them. She said that she couldn't be there because she had gone to chemo treatment that very morning. She went on to tell everyone how much she looked forward to the stop in Seven Springs each year and how much she enjoyed seeing everyone, talking with them, and seeing how much their kids and grandkids had grown since our very last visit. She also expressed how sad she was to see how the storms over the past few years had devastated the town, and how inspiring it was to see them recover in the face of such adversity. She told how watching what they had done gave her strength to go through her battle with cancer. She expressed how much she loved everyone there and how much she looked forward to seeing them again. That's just the kind of person that he was. The friends that we have made on this trip have changed our lives forever. We're different because of every one of them. All right, get ready. So as I stated in the beginning, all this grand adventure with Wendy and the friends we've made along the way started with a simple 5x7 card. And it's only fitting that it ends today with a simple card. This is the last card Wendy sent me. And she asked that I save it till April and read it to our team before we launched on our 19th year. But after I read it, I thought about it. She wasn't just talking to me. She wasn't just talking to Kim. She wasn't just talking to you. She was talking to me. And I don't think that she would mind if I shared it with you today. It says, "Hi all. You're getting ready to awaken your souls with long stretches of beautiful woods and water. I'll be along with spirit, sending energy and love. Thanks for all you do. I'm so glad you were in my life. That's how much she cared about everybody. She thought about everybody the same way. She loved everybody, and that's why we love her. She's clearly a huge hole in our lives, but she'll always be there, just as she's always been. As long as we do not forget her.
Wendy's brother and sister, Brother Stephen and Sister Amy, have shared with me some things that they wrote that they want me to read on their behalf. I think it would be most appropriate if I save that till after what I'm going to say. So I'm going to share that with you after I say what I'm going to say. I'll share these words from Stephen and Amy, and then we're going to hear a song and then have a closing benediction. For those of you that don't know, I know many of you, but not all of you know who I am. My name is Greg Burris. I'm the pastor of Rocky River Baptist Church in Siler City. And like all of you here, a friend of Wendy's. I'm here because Wendy and I were friends, not because I was her pastor or anything like that. But she asked me a few weeks ago a few weeks before she passed, if I would be here to deliver some words and lead in this service and this memorial time together. And I'm not exactly sure. I mean, Wendy and I were friends, and I love her, and I'm going to miss her. I'm not exactly sure why she asked me to do this, except that I'm a friend of hers who's a preacher. But I got to thinking it might be because she was going to enjoy the look on some of your faces at the thought that you were going to have to sit here and listen to a Baptist preacher. Her memorial service. And wouldn't she be glad we're laughing, all the laughing and the crying? Wendy and I got to know each other because we trained in karate together. That's how we became friends. And as I've told the family, as I've spoken to each of you that knew Wendy and that we've shared since she's passed, you know already what I'm going to say, which is Wendy was a light like no other to everybody she encountered. She made you her friend. It was a wonderful blessing every time I saw her. Because I'm a minister, I not only got to see her when we trained together and worked out in karate, I got to see her in the hospital. Jack was telling stories about her work and all her coworkers. I got to see her in action when I was there visiting folks who were sick and hurting, and saw her and the compassion that she dealt with them with, and what a blessing she was to those folks. And what a blessing for me to get to walk down the hospital halls and suddenly there's Wendy Taylor. Hug and laugh and smile and catch up. What a blessing. What a light. What love. But I thought, if you'll permit me, and if it's not too disrespectful to my karate teachers and superiors who are here today, we trained together in karate, and I thought there were just a few lessons that karate teaches about living life that Wendy exemplified, that I thought it might be appropriate for me to share just quickly with you today. One of those is, the first one is, you need to pay as much attention to the journey as you do to the destination. When you like to travel, when you like to kayak, when you like to go to be new places and different things. It's perfect, great, Chris, that you were sharing Wendy being the one who wanted to be most prepared, right? Every step of the way. When you're training in karate, Wendy could deliver a kick that would punch you in the gut. What do you think? Some of us know from experience. When you're training in karate, you begin by doing things that you may not think are really worthwhile. This is not really why I came. I wanted to fight somebody, or I wanted to be able to do these flashy things. And I'm standing around holding stances for minutes and what feels like hours, and continual refrains of lift that knee, return that hip. But each step in that process makes it possible to do it well. And if you're not willing to take the steps, you'll never do it as well as you can. As Master Jolly shared, Wendy was always willing to prepare and to live each moment of the journey as thoroughly and joyfully and fully as she did the anticipation of the destination. The second thing I wanted to share with you that is also a lesson that we learn in karate that's a lesson for life is don't forget to breathe. Sometimes when you're faced off with an opponent in a karate match, you know that you're going to get hit, or even when you're making contact with somebody else, one of the things that people often do that we kind of instinctually do in those moments is we stop breathing. And how often, Pastor Jolly, do we hear, don't forget to breathe? Losing a dear friend, a family member, somebody that was such a light and light to us, can be like a punch in the gut. Wendy says to you, don't forget to breathe. Really appropriate for someone who spent her life helping people breathe who were having time struggling with it, right? Don't forget to take time to pay attention to your own feelings, to pause in that moment, to let yourself cry and laugh and remember. Don't forget to breathe. And finally, you can do more if you don't try to do it alone. No one else can walk the path for you. No one else can breathe for you. But you know, every chance she got, in all her life, Wendy was always helping others breathe and walk. And we all are able to do it better because we had Wendy doing it with us and with each other. I was so pleased that Master Jolly told the story about Jim and the overhead throw, because that's exactly the kind of thing I was thinking about. Sometimes when we talk about you get further, you can do more if you don't try to do it alone, we think about, well, somebody helping us to do it. But sometimes the not doing it alone is the challenge of doing it with somebody who doesn't exactly match up in a compatible or an easy way. Right? I remember when I was first learning how to do hip throws in martial arts, and I always wanted to work out with somebody who was shorter and heavier than me, because the hardest thing to do is to get somebody off balance who weighs more but has a lower center of gravity. But I couldn't learn how to do that as well unless I was willing to work with a partner that challenged me. Wendy loved a lot of people, not all of whom necessarily always get along with each other, maybe. But Wendy made us her friend. We can do more together. She exemplified that, right? She she drew us all in to her circle. Wendy experienced her own kick in the gut on more than one occasion in her lifetime, and most recently, of course, with this diagnosis of cancer. The suffering, the difficulty, and the pain, and the watching her loved ones grieve and struggle. Hard thing. But you and I know Wendy walked that path with the same grace and dignity and joy and mischief and celebration that she did when times were light and easy. Everywhere she went, she brought light and love. As we remember her, I couldn't help but think of the words of one of my favorite old Chinese, ancient Chinese philosophical texts. It's related to martial arts, but more to life. It says, if you attack with compassion, you will win. If you defend with compassion, you will stand firm. What heaven upholds, it surrounds with compassion. Wendy was heaven's compassion to you and me. And our invitation here together as we remember her might be, let's carry that with us from here on. As I said, I'd like to read these words from Wendy's brother Stephen and Wendy's sister Amy. First from Stephen. There are no words that can describe the emptiness within me from losing Wendy. As her younger brother, just 2 years apart, we were close. Back in our high school days, we shared similar interests and would do many things together. We would share some of our deepest thoughts back in those awkward teenage times. Just like her mom and dad and older sister Lori, Wendy was loving and caring to everyone she met. After high school, she worked as a social worker at a nonprofit organization called Grounding Space, where she provided support to troubled kids. Her people skills led later on to her becoming a compassionate and dedicated respiratory therapist. She loved the great outdoors and truly appreciated the beauty of nature. Although our family moved away from each other and we all spread out, Wendy would always make the effort, oftentimes by herself, to make the long drive from eastern North Carolina to northern Kentucky for our annual family Thanksgiving visits. There we would catch up on life and play friendly games of tackle football. Wendy, all of 5'1", was a true force to be reckoned with who stopped at nothing. I'm pretty sure she used her black belt in karate during those football games to stop me in my tracks. When life got tough, Wendy never shied away from helping and consoling others. When our father's health was declining, Wendy, disregarding her own health issues at the time, made multiple trips to Kentucky just to be there for my dad in his final weeks. This involved some difficult conversations with him, which she handled with grace and love in a way that only Wendy could. Wendy was beautiful inside and out. She lived her life by loving and caring for everyone. I know in my heart Wendy is living eternally in heaven with Mom, Dad, and my oldest sister Lori, where they are rejoicing together. I love you, Wendy, and already Miss you so much. And this from her sister Amy. How can I describe having Wendy as my sister? A lifetime that spans my earliest childhood memories to the richness of sharing our adult years together. The ups and downs of life, work, children, family, friends, and the close confidences that come from trust and mutual respect. I can sum it up in all in one small word that always leaves a huge impact: love. Everyone in this room can attest that Wendy truly loved. More than anyone I've ever met, she innately knew how to love in the purest form. She loved deeply and she loved well. Her care, interest, affirmation, understanding, and encouragement were sincere and wholehearted, regardless of circumstance. Known in the family as Cool Aunt Wendy, her love of fun and adventure spilled over into all our family gatherings, leaving us with memories of themed beach trips, treasure hunts, kids' craft projects, good food, parties, games, great conversations, and lots of laughter and hugs. To me, growing up, she was a big sister that I always looked up to, from wanting to dress like her, follow her around, sneak into her shared with my other sister Laurie's room whenever possible to see what interesting things they were up to. And in later years, following her lead with the appreciation of the outdoors, all living creatures, the joy of gardening and caring for the birds, and my still remaining staunch dislike for onions, based solely on the fact that as a child, she didn't like them, so neither would I. She met life's challenges, and particularly this last difficult year, with a grit and determination coupled with a positive attitude that inspired and amazed. She will always be my big sister that I look up to, and a powerful woman of influence to me the rest of the days of my life. As she recently wrote in a card to me, each day really is a gift. Sometimes it's hard to remember that with all we pack in and expectations of how things are supposed to be. Wise words. At our last visit, in our last visit, she told me she was going to keep fighting, but also knew that if it wasn't meant to be, passing from this earth would be her last big adventure. She told me she was assured of her salvation, knew she would be spending eternity in heaven with the Lord, and so many that have gone before her, our precious sister and her best friend of all time, Laurie, and our mom, dad, grandparents, and dear friends. Wendy, you were right. This wasn't how I expected it to be, but I am eternally grateful to God for the gift of each day you were present in my life. I vow to attempt to love like you did, continue to feed the hummingbirds, and not eat onions in your honor. Until we meet again, dear sister, you are the best.
You took the supermarket flash from the windowsill, through the day of tea from the cup, packed up the photo album that you had made, memories of a life that's been loved. Took the get well suit cars and stuffed animals, put the old ginger beer down the sink. Dad always told me, don't you cry when you're down, but Mom, there's a tear every time that I think. Oh, I'm in pieces, it's tearing me up, but I know a heart that's broke is a heart that's been loved, so I'll sing hallelujah. You were an angel in the shape of pillows, made the bed, stacked the chairs up, folded your nightgowns neatly in a case. John said he dried and put his hand on my cheek and wiped a tear from the side of my face. And I hope that I see the world as you did, 'cause I know a life with love is a life that's been lived. So I'll sing hallelujah. You were an angel in the shape of my mom. When I fell down, you'd be there holding me up. Spread your wings as you go, and when God takes you back, say hallelujah, you're home. You got to see the person I have become. Spread your wings, and I know that when God took you back, He said, hallelujah, you're home.
It's now our sad duty to say our final earthly goodbyes to Wendy. But our great privilege to commend her soul to God, to carry the love she has given us together with each other. May the peace of God, which passes all understanding,